What is the most terrifying admirer you've ever heard of? In 2016, a shocking case occurred in Singapore. A 51-year-old Malaysian man, after being rejected by a 28-year-old Chinese nurse, brutally ended her. Afterward, he even stripped her clothes off, took photos, and spent the night embracing her corpse, claiming, "Even in death, I must have her." How did this case unfold? And what horrifying details lie behind it? On March 20, 2016, Singapore was in the midst of the rainy season. The sky remained gloomy, casting a heavy, oppressive atmosphere. That morning, Mr. Chen, a landlord living in Block 70 of Circuit Road, received a call from his tenant Mok Soon Huat. Mok told Mr. Chen that he was going on a business trip to Malaysia and wouldn't be returning for a while, requesting to terminate the lease. Mr. Chen agreed without suspicion. 2 days later, on March 22, Mr. Chen followed the usual procedure and went to inspect Mok's rental unit. But as soon as he opened the door, he saw someone lying face down on the bed, the blanket neatly pulled up, the head resting peacefully on the pillow. Assuming it was Mok fast asleep, Mr. Chen quietly stepped back and closed the door. After dinner, Mr. Chen tried calling Mok Soon Huat again, wanting to confirm whether he still intended to terminate the lease. But no one answered. Left with no choice, Mr. Chen returned to the rental unit, planning to wake Mok up and get a clear answer. Yet no matter how much he called out, there was no movement from the bed. Finally, unable to wait any longer, Mr. Chen stepped forward and pulled back the blanket, only to be met with a horrifying sight. The person lying there wasn't Mok at all, but the naked corpse of a woman. Shocked to his core, Mr. Chen collapsed to the floor. Once he regained his composure, he immediately called the police. When officers arrived, Mr. Chen recounted Mok's earlier call and how he had discovered the body. Singapore police quickly concluded that Mok, who had fled to Malaysia, was the prime suspect. Since Mok was now abroad, Singapore authorities sought assistance from the Malaysian police. But in an unexpected twist, the very next morning, March 23rd, Mr. Chen received another call from Mok. This time, Mok calmly admitted that he had ended the woman. Mr. Chen was stunned. He had never imagined that Mok, who had always seemed quiet and ordinary, was capable of such unspeakable evil. Mr. Chen promptly reported the phone conversation to the police in full detail. Upon receiving the information, Malaysian authorities swiftly took action. On the evening of April 4, 2016, they arrested Mok Soon Huat while he was eating at a restaurant. Mok was then extradited back to Singapore. After intense interrogation, he finally confessed to strangling the victim with a towel on the night of March 21, 2016. But who was the woman? And what had transpired between them to drive Mok to such a brutal act? As Mok revealed his account, the chilling truth of the case slowly came to light. The victim, Zhong Huaxiang, was a 28-year-old woman from Shaanxi, China. Bright and ambitious from a young age, she had earned the opportunity to study nursing in Singapore through academic excellence. After graduation, she secured a position at the National University Hospital, located near Singapore's upscale residential districts. Zhong became the first college graduate from her remote village to go abroad. Her future seemed dazzling with promise. Upon arriving in Singapore, the small-town girl encountered a developed world beyond her imagination. Everything fascinated her, the glamorous and the decadent alike. Eager to experience it all, Zhong embraced a lifestyle vastly different from her roots. She began dating various men, freely indulging in her newfound allure. But this liberation took a dark turn when she developed a gambling addiction. As debts piled up, Zhong took on part-time jobs to make ends meet. The year 2011 marked the beginning of her tragic downfall. At just 23, blossoming with youth, she had no inkling her life would be cut short at 28. It was during this time, while working at Marina Bay Sands restaurant, that she met Mok Soon Huat, a man 19 years her senior. Also an employee at the restaurant, Mok appeared meek and dependable. He showed Zhong kindness, filling the void of loneliness in her foreign life. Gradually, their relationship deepened into friendship. To Mok Soon Huat, Zhong Huaxiang was young, beautiful, and gentle, everything he desired. During her time working at the restaurant, he fell helplessly in love with her. But Mok wasn't content with just friendship. Believing that proximity breeds affection, he bided his time, staying close as a friend while quietly escalating his pursuit. Despite his relentless advances, Zhong remained unmoved. She made it clear they would never be more than friends. Yet rejection only fueled Mok's obsession. Even after Zhong left the restaurant, he refused to give up. He bombarded her with invitations, dinners, shopping trips, even bankrolling her gambling habits to buy her fleeting happiness. Zhong, perhaps out of guilt or convenience, played along, creating the illusion of a romance. To Mok, she was already his girlfriend. But Zhong's feelings were starkly different. When questioned about their relationship, she scoffed, "We've never even been intimate. How could we be a couple?" As their outings continued, Mok's behavior grew increasingly possessive. By early 2016, Zhong finally realized polite rejections weren't enough. She began refusing his invitations outright. The sudden distance drove Mok to madness. Sleepless nights filled with paranoia. Was there another man? The thought of Zhong with anyone else was unbearable. And so he made a decision, one that would seal both their fates. Driven by paranoia, Mok secretly installed a surveillance camera across from Zhong Huaxiang's apartment, ensuring he could monitor her every move. What he saw shattered him. Zhong was seeing other men. The footage confirmed his worst fears. Betrayal seethed in his veins. He couldn't let his girlfriend be stolen away. On the afternoon of March 21, 2016, after relentless pleading, Zhong reluctantly agreed to one last meeting. They gathered at Mok's rental unit for a hot pot dinner. As they ate, Mok watched her, more radiant than ever. Tonight, he resolved, she would finally belong to him. After the meal, Zhong sat on the sofa, casually brushing her long hair. The sight of her elegance ignited Mok's hunger. He lunged, desperate to force intimacy. Zhong recoiled in horror. The kind facade vanished. She threatened to bite off his tongue if he didn't stop. Her resistance only excited him further. When she screamed, humiliation twisted into rage. He struck her. Trembling, Zhong confessed under his interrogation. She'd gone out with another man. 5 times since cutting ties with Mok. Worse, she'd remained intimate with an ex-boyfriend back in China. The revelation gutted him. How dare she? While he'd been faithful, she'd betrayed him repeatedly. Blind with jealousy, he grabbed a towel and wrapped it around her throat. Zhong fought violently, but as the fabric tightened, her struggles faded. 2 minutes later, she lay still. Gazing at her lifeless body, Mok felt grim satisfaction. Now at last, his woman would never leave him again. But the horror did not end there. Even as Zhong Huaxiang's lifeless body lay before him, Mok Soon, who had found himself still consumed by desire. With frenzied hands, he stripped Zhong naked and photographed her exposed corpse with his phone. Then, discarding his own clothes, he molested her remains, only to stop at the final moment, claiming he couldn't feel aroused by a dead woman. Pushing Zhong aside, he retreated to the bathroom to satisfy himself alone, leaving her corpse splayed across the bed. Afterward, as he dressed, reality finally crashed over him. Now came the cold calculation. How to dispose of the evidence. His eyes landed on a purple suitcase. A plan took shape. He would cram Zhong's body inside, dump it in the bushes near Sembawang, then flee undetected to his sister's home in Malaysia. But rigor mortis had set in. Despite straining until sweat dripped from his brow, the stiffened corpse refused to fit. Next came the knife. He considered dismemberment, but the thought of bloodstains and the tedious cleanup made him reconsider. Defeated, he abandoned the idea, resolving to leave the grim discovery to the landlord. He hauled Zhong's body back to the bed and lay down beside her. In his twisted fantasy, they were now husband and wife sharing a marital bed. To him, even this grotesque parody of intimacy was preferable to losing her. At dawn, Mok began his meticulous escape. He rifled through Zhong's purse, pocketing her phone and cash, then methodically shredding her credit cards before discarding the fragments. A call to landlord Mr. Chen, a calm request to terminate the lease, a visit to a friend's place. His personal belongings sold for 200 SGD. Every step was executed with chilling precision. Returning one last time to the rental unit, he gazed at Zhong's body, still serenely posed on the bed. Like a devoted lover, he bent down to kiss her forehead, whispering, "Rest now," before walking away forever. When the full truth emerged, the depravity of Mok's actions horrified the nation. Zhong's family, summoned to Singapore by police, collapsed under the weight of their grief. Their daughter had been stolen by a man whose love knew only possession and violence. They vowed one thing: justice would hunt Mok down, no matter how far he ran. On September 18, 2019, the case was brought before a Singapore court. The defendant, Mok Soon Huat, faced 3 charges: 1 count of murder, 1 count of attempted necrophilia, and 1 count of escape. Yet in the face of these charges, Mok pleaded not guilty. The defense lawyer argued that when Mok initially gave his statement, he had been awake for 24 hours without sleep. His confession to killing Zhong Huaxiang, the lawyer claimed, was made under duress from the police while in a mentally unclear state, and thus should not be admissible as evidence. Furthermore, the defense pointed out that during the interrogation, Mok had accidentally knocked over an officer's coffee, damaging a computer, and had been verbally abused by the police. This, they insisted, had further compromised his mental state, rendering his confession unreliable. These claims were swiftly refuted by prosecution representative Hong Jincheng, who denied that Mok had shown any signs of exhaustion during questioning. As for the spilled coffee and alleged verbal abuse, Hong stated that Mok had been handcuffed and physically restrained at the time, making such incidents impossible. In the judge's view, while the defense and prosecution presented conflicting accounts, the evidence submitted by the police over the 3-day trial was sufficient to convict Mok on all 3 charges: murder, attempted necrophilia, and escape. At the conclusion of the trial, the judge declared Mok guilty on all counts. With the sentences combined, he was ultimately given life imprisonment. During the proceedings, the prosecution's opening statement emphasized that this was a crime born of jealousy, rage, and unrequited obsession. Love is love, not possession, and certainly not fixation. Mok claimed to love Zhong Huaxiang, yet he expected every act of his to be repaid in kind. Blinded by possessiveness, his so-called love brought nothing but death and endless suffering to Zhong and her family. That's all for now. If you enjoyed this case, don't forget to like and subscribe. Follow Case Diaries. There are plenty more cases coming your way. Got thoughts on today's story? Drop them in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you think. See you in the next one.